talking about a very serious topic with face mask all over me.
Beep, boop, ba-doop, ba-doo, ba-doop, boop.
They said to use a warm washcloth to open your pores. I don't have any washcloths, so here's a sock. Are my pores open enough? Have my pores been opened to the world, or I don't know. Good enough. I've seen the beauty gurus will do these like little sort of like a get chitty chatty video where they put on a face mask and then they just like talk for a while. So that's what I'm gonna. Ooh, this is cold. All of that like warming my nose to open my pores is probably been done away with by the fact that this is fucking cold. But I'm going to put on a weird little nose mask and then talk about books. I've been rereading the same, like, 6 books for all of 2019, basically. I haven't read a single other book. Until now, I have finally read another book, and it was a mistake. I actually got 40% of the way through, and I was so, like, anxious and feeling gross and upset by it that I had to stop. It was a romance novel with an asexual protagonist. They were actually gray asexual, or gray sexual, and the gray sexual character's name was Brett, which the characters were Brett and Harry is allosexual. Brett and Harry, those are some romantic names. I forgot to mention, at the time the story starts, the asexual character has no idea that he is asexual. He just thinks that he doesn't enjoy sex or that he has a low libido, and at some point after the 1/3 mark, I guess someone eventually tells him that he is asexual. And so basically the first meeting where these two guys meet, all they do is argue. They just bicker the whole time. And sometimes that can be done well, but in this instance, it was an asexual character who was trying to communicate their asexuality, and the other character was just like steamrolling over them and just asking really inappropriate questions, like, how often do you have sex? Do you even like sex? Do you have sex with your ex-boyfriends? And like stuff that is none of anyone's business, and he just kept badgering him with these questions. And the way it was written, it was supposed to kind of be like flirting, because they kiss in it. No one who is being basically harassed with all these questions is not going to want to make out with the person who's harassing them, but that's what happened. And so they start kissing, and then the allosexual character is like, he's basically like, I want to have sex with you, like, it's just, you're so appealing. And the guy's like, you realize that you can't hook up with me, right? Like, that's kind of what I'm telling you, is that I'm not into that. And he's like, but you do have sex sometimes, right? Like, why is he obsessed with this? The part that made me just want to be sick, the asexual character is trying to explain that he does like some touching, that he likes, you know, like cuddling, and he likes like petting and like very like non-sexual touches, wonderful. And he's trying to show this to the guy, and then the guy just gets really turned on by it, which, I mean, is a reaction, is a fair reaction. But then his response, his answer, when the guy's like, oh gosh, you're getting turned on, he jumps away, and he's like, this is not what I want. And the character who has the giant boner is like, I can't help myself, it's like your forbidden fruit. Like, that shouldn't turn you on to hear somebody that you're interested in tell you no. Like, that's rapey. The thing in this book that really hurt me was that there's a scene where the allosexual corners the asexual character in the asexual character's bedroom on their bed and continues to interrogate them. And it made me feel so trapped, and it reminded me of all of the times that I've been on dates with people who felt that it was their right to know everything about my sexuality, and I couldn't really escape or leave. He even asked, like, do you jack off? It's like, no, you don't deserve to know that. You cannot just go to anyone and ask that. But because you've heard that this person is asexual, you think it is okay to ask those questions, and it is not okay to ever ask those questions of anyone, unless maybe you're their doctor. Otherwise, not your business. I had to stop. It was too much. And I will link down below a review that someone else did, another asexual person who did a review, and they also didn't like it, but they actually read the whole thing. I was not about to stomach any more of that. The part that really bothers me, though, is that I went on Goodreads to post my review, and mine is the only 1-star review. All of the other reviews are like 4 and 5 stars, just like glowing reviews about how amazing it is, and like, I reviewed a book 2 years ago called Hopeless Romantic that was extremely transphobic, and it was about a gay man who finds himself attracted to a trans woman, and he's like, oh, well, that's why I'm into you, because, you know, you're basically a guy. And she kisses him and dates him? And it was a disgusting, awful, terrible book. And I put, 1 star, and I explained why this kind of portraying this as romantic is gross and offensive and harmful. But all of the other reviews are like 4 and 5 stars. These people just being like, oh my gosh, this is such a, this taught me so much about what it's like to be transgender. And I'm like, no. We talk about, bad rep and stuff, and on the one hand, it's offensive to the people who are that identity, and they go into this book excited to see themselves, and instead they see some gross caricature, or they see harm to them portrayed as romantic and desirable, and all this. But then there's also the people who have no idea anything about this identity, and they're reading your book, and they think that it's true, and they think that this is acceptable, and that this is a good portrayal of this identity and of a relationship with them, and that almost pisses me off more, because those people think that they learned something and they didn't, and they're going to go on in life and treat people like you portrayed in your book because they think that that's how it's supposed to be done, because that's like the only exposure they've had to it. That like, the people who have no idea what this identity is or how you're supposed to treat them, they read this book and they're like, oh, this is a great portrayal, I've learned so much, and then they go on and they treat other people that way. That just makes me so fucking tired. And it's a self-published small book, so it's not like some publisher knew better and didn't hire, what are they called? I want to say suggestivity readers, that's not it, sensitivity readers. But just don't write about a marginalized character unless you actually know what you're talking about. Like, I get the desire that this author probably had to, like, write something that was inclusive and diverse, and they wanted to do something right by this community. And it's clear because when the book opens, they have a whole page in there about, like, if you want to know more about asexuality, here are some resources. And it's like, that's good, but you undid all of that goodness with the actual book that you wrote. I know that a lot of people get upset when it's like, just don't write minority characters unless you are that minority, and I'm not saying that, but you damn well better know what you're talking about, and you better have not just researched. Like, unless you are eyeballs deep in that community, you shouldn't be writing about it. Because no matter what research you do, you're not going to understand the personal perspective of people who have lived through it and have been hurt by the kind of people that you are writing as though they are heroes and as though they are romantic ideals. If you're going to write an asexual character or bisexual character or any character that is not your identity, stop and ask yourself why. Why you are doing this. And don't just do your research, but follow people on Twitter, on Tumblr, on whatever social media you're in. Follow people of those identities, not just one. Follow like 10 minimum. Read all of their posts for a long period of time before you ever start writing your character, so that whenever you see them talk about, today this awful thing happened to me, today I read this book and it hurt me, today I heard a joke and it made me feel like I didn't belong, here's the terrible date I went on with this awful person. When you hear all of those stories, you're getting a sliver of the experience. But that kind of thing is usually not in the research. When you go to asexuality.org, it's going to tell you what an asexual person is. It might tell you some of the things that they're discriminated against, but it's not going to give you the, like, deep, everyday perspective of that person living with that identity. Personal blogs on Tumblr are great for that. Stalk them quietly. Don't engage. Do not engage. Do not write to these people and ask them to give you information. Don't ask them to explain themselves. Don't ask them to sensitivity read your book. Just listen. Just listen to them. Like, that's all you are doing with them. Just listening to their experiences, taking it as 100% fact. Don't argue. Don't be like, well, I think they're missing. No. Just listen. And then maybe you will have enough information to be able to write a book that isn't fucking awful. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So, I'm going to wash this mask off and stop ranting about things that I can't change on my own.